What's going on everyone? You're back with Jono for another quick math lesson. Today we're going to look at volume and capacity to see how they're related and how we can convert between two different units of measurement. So when we think about the word capacity, there are many uses of it in everyday life. Usually what we're talking about is the maximum amount that something can produce or contain. So if you're working at your maximum capacity, there is no way that you could work harder, which is I'm sure what you do every time you do your maths homework. But then other examples of this is like a stadium has a maximum capacity. It couldn't hold more than 50,000 people in this example. Or a battery could be working at a maximum capacity of 240 volts. If it needed to power something more than that, it wouldn't be able to get the job done. So the idea of capacity and maximum is really important. But when we're talking about maths, all we're talking about with capacity is the total amount or the maximum amount of water that could fit inside a three-dimensional shape. So really we're talking about how much stuff can fit into a three-dimensional object, which would depend on how much space that three-dimensional object takes up. So this is why it relates to volume so closely. So with volume, we're talking about things like centimeters cubed, meters cubed, because we're in three dimensions and the measurements are length, so they have to be centimeters or meters. But for capacity, we're really talking about milliliters and liters, how much water would fit into these objects. So there has to be a way to convert in between these two. So luckily for us, there is a really easy way to convert in between these two units. Gotta love the metric system. So 1 centimeter cubed is equal to 1 milliliter. So that's nice and cruisy. And then we know if we've got 1,000 milliliters, that would be 1 liter. So 1,000 centimeters cubed is 1 liter, which again makes total sense. And then from here, if I've got 1 meter cubed, right, which is quite a lot, if you think about 1 meter in front of you and then 1 meter up, in order to fill that with water, it would be 1,000 liters. So for each one of these jumps, all we've got to remember is times 1,000. To go from 1 cubic centimeter to 1,000 cubic centimeters, we jump up by times 1,000. And then when we go from 1 liter up to 1,000 liters, that's 1 meter cubed. So getting these conversions down is really important. So the types of questions you're going to get are going to look something like this. What is the capacity of this Olympic swimming pool? Or really, how much water would it take to fill it up to the brim? In order to do that, we've got to find out the volume first and then multiply by the correct conversion. So all we have to do to find out the volume of this pool is do 2 multiplied by 50 multiplied by 25, which is equal to 2,500 meters cubed. Now, this is not our final answer. We need to convert it into liters. So in order to do this, we need to do the 2,500 multiplied by 1,000, which is equal to 2.5 million liters. And that's how much would go into one Olympic-sized swimming pool, which is just a huge amount of water. Then we can also work out what's the capacity of a Coke can. So I just did these measurements before, and what we should see is that it equals 355 mils, if that's what they did, and filled it up to the very brim. So in order to do this, all I'd have to do is pi multiplied by 3.3 squared, multiplied by the height, which is 12.2. If I threw that into my calculator, I'd get the answer of 417.38, and this would be centimeters cubed. Because I know that centimeters cubed and milliliters go together perfectly, I can convert this incredibly easily, and I just get that exact same number, but in milliliters. So because I was expecting 355 mils, they must not fill up the cans all the way to the top. So my big pro tip for these ones, it is just working out what the volume of something is and then multiplying by these conversions. I would highly, highly recommend to highlight if you're finding the capacity or the volume in the question before you start. It's a really silly way to lose a mark. You've obviously done all the maths correctly, but if you can't convert it in that last step to what that question is asking, you might lose a mark, which just totally sucks. I do hope you found this lesson helpful, and I'll see you guys later.